what am I training for? When you have your personal life impacted significantly by an injury, you have to really take that step back and ask yourself, why am I doing CrossFit? Is it to go to the CrossFit Games? Was it to be this top competitor? No, that actually wasn't even the goal. I've been doing it because I love it. I'm training for life.
There was one thing the world was asking for. It was for one more podcast about CrossFit. Well, here we are anyways. This is the Silverback Media Podcast, where we share the stories of the everyday CrossFitter, so that more people are encouraged and empowered to try it themselves. Here's your host and everyday CrossFitter, Marco Mejia.
Happy Friday, Silverback Media crew. My name is Marco Mejia. I'm a CrossFit Level 2 coach out in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am your host here on the Silverback Media Podcast. If this is your first time tuning into the show, welcome. We're happy to have you here. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. Happy to have you back. My guest on the show this week is Courtney Samudio. Courtney is a CrossFit Level 1 coach here in Phoenix at CrossFit Fury. In this episode, we go through her athletic background, how she found CrossFit, how she got into CrossFit coaching, and we talk a lot about her approach towards coaching and how she builds trust with her athletes so that way she can help them continue to make progress over the long run. At the end of the episode as well, Courtney does share some recent injuries that she's had and how she's working to overcome those, but also how that's changed her mindset and her perspective towards training, and how she's going to continue to incorporate CrossFit into her fitness routine, but how it may just change from a priority perspective. Very interesting conversation to wrap up, and I appreciate Courtney for sharing that piece of her story. Now, before we get to the conversation with Courtney, make sure to go do all the things for the robots. Make sure you're following the show on whatever platform you're listening on, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. Go follow on social media at Silverback Media. And now that is 21 down and 10,000 to go. And let's go talk to Courtney. All right, Courtney, welcome to the show. Back-to-back CrossFit Fury coaches on the show.
Awesome.
How's
Thank
it
you for
going?
having me. I'm good.
Oh,
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, good. Just, another happy Friday. And we're actually recording on a Friday too. So it's not just because the episodes come out on a Friday. So this works out.
I love it.
Okay, cool. So let's get into your story. So what, just roll the clock back, right, to when you were younger. What were you getting into as a kid athletically? Were you, active, playing sports? What kind of things were you getting into?
Yeah, my younger, more fit days, I guess I should say. So I've been doing sports really like throughout my entire childhood into my adult years. I started as a competitive gymnast when I was 7.
Cool.
Spent about 7 years doing competitive gymnastics. Once I started kind of transitioning into junior high, I wanted to kind of explore school sports. I had a lot of friends that were playing club volleyball at that time. My dad and I used to sit together a lot and watch basketball, so had an itch to pick up the ball and kind of try something different there. So started entering into some of those team sports in junior high, and that carried over through high school, eventually into college. So I played volleyball at the collegiate level at a small liberal arts college just outside of Chicago. I also ran track for 2 seasons out there. So I've definitely been playing a number of different sports, some individual, some team for a long time. But yeah, that's kind of how I just started with athletics.
Nice. All right. I feel like I already have like 3 separate side questions that we're gonna try to rattle through to not get too derailed. One on the gymnastics side. I feel someone from the old gym where I was coaching before CFNS was also a competitive gymnast, and I remember there was she used to tell me that there were like different levels of gymnastics,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
What level did you get? Doesn't it go to 10? Is 10 like the highest, right?
10 usually is kind of the highest for competitive levels, and then it goes into the elite phase. So I was
Okay.
training level 8 when I quit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said that took you through junior high, right?
Yeah, I quit when I was
Okay.
around 14 or so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gotcha. Dang, level 8. All right. Hell yeah. And then you said you went to a small school, you said just outside of Chicago?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's called
What?
Trinity Christian College.
Trinity Christian College. Okay. Did you
Yeah.
grow up in that area?
I did not. No, it was kind of a random journey that took me out to Chicago. Had a teammate that was at a different school and had added that school on the list of places to visit. And actually, that's where I
There you
ended
go.
up signing. So,
All right.
yeah.
And were you living here in Phoenix?
At
Did
the
you grow up in
time,
Phoenix?
yeah, I
Okay.
grew up in
Gotcha.
Phoenix and then relocated out to Chicago.
Did anybody warn you about the winter? or did you just experience that
Yes.
for
Yeah, they did. And I just didn't listen. I was in denial. And then it took me about 3 years before I realized how bad it was.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, I know that feeling. I grew up in Miami and then went to college in St. Louis to play baseball. So the winter
Yeah.
was, yeah, the same thing, right? Somebody tried to warn me, but I was like, all right, it'll be fine. And then
Yeah.
it was not fine, especially for an outdoor sport. Like that just that
Hmm.
made it that much worse. Not that your experience was any, easier because you were playing indoors, but
Yeah.
whew, 3 hour games outside in the middle of February when it's like
Oh,
25 degrees, 30 degrees with wind chill.
yeah.
Not a lot
And
of
we
fun.
did
Wouldn't
that
recommend it.
voluntarily. Isn't that interesting how we decided
Yeah.
we decided to do that?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that was a lesson that we needed to learn the hard way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So that gets you through college. And did you
Hmm.
with all that training and everything, especially I'm sure with the gymnastics, since that's where you kind of got your competitive start, did you appreciate the kind of, I guess, the more workout exercise component of that while you were going through it? Especially like I guess once you moved into the team sports of volleyball and basketball, I'm sure you still had to do, train and do workouts and stuff. Did you enjoy that side of it as well, along with like the practice in the games, or was it more of like, this is kind of a, necessary evil because I want to play these sports?
Yeah, I think admittedly it was kind of the necessary evil. For me, it was I love the social aspect of the team sports, just being around other people, the camaraderie, the community that you build, the energy. It was like the strength and conditioning training aspect of it was just part of it all. I don't think I really actually appreciated it more until I got older and kind of out of team sports. As a kid, it just felt like it was kind of part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I have fun playing the games. I have fun practicing. I guess I'll do the workouts because why not? Because I'm
Yeah,
supposed to. Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Do I really have to do burpees for volleyball? I don't know, but I guess they're telling me I should.
I mean, look, okay, I'm not going to get into a conversation about the functionality of burpees because I've done that too many times on here. But for volleyball, I'm like, that just seems like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know. It
like,
just
come
feels
on,
like a
guys.
somebody was just making you do it because they thought it was a cool idea kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, or for their own
Yeah.
personal entertainment, right?
Yeah, that's probably a better reason for it. Yeah. How was
Exactly.
that transition out of sports then? Did you play volleyball then throughout all your college years?
I did, yeah. So all four
Okay.
years. So yeah, transitioning like life after sports, it was kind of weird to navigate. I don't think you realize until you're out of it how much of your kind of like identity is wrapped up in sports and your
Yeah.
routines kind of revolve around seasons. So you kind of have your preseason training, you're always getting ready for the next season. You have all of the, competitive tournaments and the games and all the practices that go with season. It's over and then you're back at it again and you rinse and repeat that for 10 plus years and all of a sudden it's gone and you're like, okay, what do I do with all my free time?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a transition for sure.
Yeah, how did you navigate that? Because I remember for me, I mean, like you said, that cycle that's really an annual thing, right? It's like okay, one season ends, and there's an emotion tied to that because for I don't know, I guess a very select few, a season ends with a win and it's a big deal, right? But for
Yeah.
the vast majority of people playing competitive sports, when the season ends, you lost or you didn't
Yeah.
achieve the right. And so
Yeah.
there's a level of emotion, like especially in college, seniors are graduating, right? So it's like some of
Hmm.
your friends, you're seeing them. Um, but if you're still, if you have more years coming up, you're like, all right, cool. This is what I can
Exactly.
work on for next year, right? And kind of keep going through that. And nobody really prepares you for the moment that last game is done. And you're just like, that's it.
Yeah.
Now it's over.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did that just in the moment, how was that switch for you?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. So I was actually pretty fortunate in that my collegiate career ended on a high. So
Oh heck yeah.
we like made it to the national championship. We won the national championship.
Damn.
And so
All
that
right.
was
So
like
you're
really
you
a
are in that
good way
select
to
few.
go out. Yeah, it was a really good way to
Holy
go
crap, that's
out.
awesome.
But at the same time, you're like, okay, I've achieved it. I've achieved the goal. And so now what do I do? So it was interesting. I feel like I took kind of this like hiatus from actually playing sports and transitioned actually into coaching just to stay close to the game and kind of maintain some of those routines, but kind of playing a little bit of a different role. So I had started coaching club volleyball for 13 and 14-year-olds, which kept me very busy, still very close to the game, but still some of the same like time commitments and the physical demands of playing collegiate sports, like that really backed off a bit. And so it was kind of a way to kind of ease into life post sports without totally letting go. I think once I stopped coaching, that's when I was like, I really don't know what to do with all this time. Kind of struggled finding my fitness routine and staying active because you're so used to structure and people telling you what to do. And now you get to decide how you want to spend your time. No one's holding you accountable to being out of practice. And so there were definitely some years where there wasn't a whole lot of physical activity going on, was just trying to kind of find myself as an adult. But yeah, you're right. No one really prepares you for that transition.
And well, okay, and two interesting things there. One, I didn't know I was talking to a national champion. Goodness gracious. I'm like, even saying that, it's like, yeah, there's a very select few people, and that's kind of what I have pictured in my head. And then you're like, well, actually, I was one of those. I'm like, oh, damn, all right, cool.
Fortunately.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Congratulations on that, obviously. And yeah, that switch into coach, was that switch, or was coaching something you had always been interested in, even at that point, or growing up through sports?
Yeah, so I had started coaching the season before, and I was just kind of asked off the cuff and was like, okay, I mean, I don't know if I'll be any good at this, but sure, I can help. I could use the money, right? I'm a college student. And so I got to really experience a different side of the game and really fall in love with the game, and seeing especially young girls at 13 years old really pick up new skills and see the light bulb turn on for them was super rewarding for me. So that was kind of my first exposure to coaching. I didn't really have any like long-term plans to keep doing it, but the next season they asked me to kind of come back. And so, yeah, it was just kind of a healthy outlet to still stay connected and develop new skills and find a different, way to fulfill myself through the sport without actually playing the sport. So wasn't on my radar of anything I was going to get into, and didn't know I'd get into it years later again, but here I am.
Yeah. And I'm going to have more questions about that coaching experience once we get into your CrossFit coaching side of it and how those two tie together. But I feel like there's a lot of story between, wrapping up coaching club volleyball and when you find CrossFit. So I don't want to skip over all that just yet. So okay. So then you said you end up, once you stop coaching, that's when the reality of like, oh, nobody's holding me accountable to really stick to anything fitness wise kicks in. Right. So, so when did that become something that you were like, ooh, boy, I may need to put some more focus back in this area of my life?
Yeah, I think it was about a year and a half of me having a gym membership that probably was never used, or maybe used like intermittently, before I realized I needed to really take it seriously and have some structure around it. I could definitely tell just like significant lifestyle changes, body composition changes, all sorts of things. And you're like, okay, this is not who I've been the last few years. So how do we get back on track? And so it was probably about a year and a half before I decided I needed to go back to a structured kind of training environment. And I had done CrossFit as kind of a kind of off-season conditioning type method, and had taken a pretty long break from that, and remembered that it got me kind of back into having that routine, and I liked the community aspect, and it kind of brought back some of the team sports element, as well as the consistency piece. So that's kind of where like CrossFit picked back up for me. It was about a year and a half after I stopped coaching.
Okay. So when was your first CrossFit experience?
Hey, quick interruption from me. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you are, I have a favor to ask of you. The main way that this thing can continue to spread is through word of mouth. So if you're enjoying this episode, send it to someone or share it with someone that may benefit from it or enjoy it as well. Leave a comment, drop a 5-star review, follow the show, share about it on social media. That's the main way that we can help get this message out to others so we can continue to spread this, okay? I'd really appreciate it if you do that. And now let's get back to the show.
2013, summer of 2013.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I think mine was right around this, or might have Mine was summer 2012. Okay, I got you by a year. No,
Yeah.
it was that while you were still playing volleyball?
It was, yeah. So that was my summer strength and conditioning kind of piece that I would do. So I would do CrossFit for 2-3 months at a time, go back to play volleyball, maybe come back for a month in between school. So that's kind of how my experience started.
How did you hear about CrossFit, or how did you find out about it when you kind of jumped into it that first summer?
Yeah, ironically enough, my mom was the one that told me about CrossFit.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, the CrossFit Games was on TV, and my mom started kind of listening a little bit to the athletes that were competing and kind of where their background came from. And she saw that there was a gymnastics element to it. She knew that I needed to be in shape going into preseason every year, and so she was the one that was really encouraging me to try it. I don't
Nice.
think she thought I would still be doing it today when she made that recommendation summer of 2013, but she's the one that got me into it. And I just was like, okay, sounds like a good idea. Googled some places and showed up.
Heck yeah. Shout out, mom.
Yeah.
So you didn't really have, like, until that moment, you hadn't heard about it. You probably didn't, I don't know, did
No.
you, when you were Googling it, were you just finding locations around you? Did you come across any information about what CrossFit was, or did you kind of just find a location, walk in, and you're like, hey, I'm here to try this thing?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So Googled it, found a location, walked in. And this just kind of paints the picture for how little I knew. So my mom was encouraging me to go on a Monday morning in May. And I was like, I just really don't want to go today. I kept like pushing it off, pushing it off. I was like, I'm going to go tomorrow. So I walked in on a Tuesday, and the gym class was super dead. It was me and two other people. The workout, I think it was Annie. I want to say it was Annie. And
Oh,
the coach starts like giving me, introductions and is like, yeah, no one's really here today. Yesterday we did a pretty difficult workout called Murph. And I was like, now I look back at that time, like, oh my God, I am so glad that I did not walk in on that first day on a Monday, the 2 mile run.
yes.
And a
A
bunch of
hundred
that.
percent.
So
If you would have
yeah,
walked in and it would have been like packed gym from Murph, and you see people showing up with weight vests and all the gear and
yeah,
stuff, you're like, "What,
I'd have
mom?
been
What did
out
you
of
get
there.
me into?"
Exactly. Yeah, probably had
And
Rabdo never come back.
well, okay, look, at the same time, and I'm sure you probably, I don't know if you've thought about this now, but to hear that there's Murph and then the next day Annie, I'm like,
Yeah,
yo, that who chose that? Because
I'm telling you,
Annie is gross.
2013 was a different time for CrossFit. You know it. It was like, hey, if you got 30 minutes to do Fran and that's how long as it takes you, like, hope you don't have anywhere to go.
It's like there's no time cap, no clock's gonna
No,
save you. You're
no,
here, and we're all gonna. Well, yeah. Goodness
exactly.
gracious. Okay, so
But
what?
yeah.
How was that first class experience then for you? Did you enjoy it? Were you like, what in the world is this? Like, what? How did you feel coming out of that first class?
Oh, it was great. I was like pretty hooked on it from the start. I was like, okay, there's structure here. Like, I liked the diversity of movements. I obviously had no idea what happened the day before, but I was pretty excited, and I felt really welcomed by the coach and the community that was there on that day. So, I mean, I took like a day or two off because I was pretty sore the next day, and then came back, and it just kind of kept going from there.
Nice. What was the first time that you had like a maybe a heavier volume like gymnastics workout where you were like, oh, my background and my skill set from like training when I was in gymnastics younger is really coming in handy here.
Um, I remember, I don't know if it was Diane that was programmed or it
Mm.
just happened to be a workout that had handstand push-ups and deadlifts, but I remember being able to kick up upside down very quickly and being able to do handstand push-ups with little direction. Then I was like, okay, this is good. We're doing really well. Now pull-ups and those types of things, I was definitely a few years out and realized that I was a little out of pull-up shape when I got to
Yeah.
CrossFit, especially at that volume. But I think it was pretty clear that a lot of the skills that I had accumulated at a young age, really, like, it's like riding a bike. They do come back.
Yeah.
Looks a little bit different when you're older, but yeah, it was awesome. It was a good experience as far as that goes.
Nice. Okay, this is like a total again another total side quest question. So since you had a lot of that gymnastics background, right? And a lot of the skills maybe came back quicker, like you said, handstand push-ups just kind of came quickly with little to no direction. Do you feel like for you, when you got into coaching CrossFit, do you feel like that level of skill developed when you were younger helped you to coach others at it? Because part of the
Oh,
reason why I ask it is 100% if you're able to do the movements, right, that gives you a better chance to be able to coach it. But
mhm.
also if you learned them at such a young age, maybe you just it just became ingrained in you so well that sometimes for some people, I'm not saying this is for you, that's why I'm curious from your perspective. For some people, that may make it harder to explain how to do it because you're
Yeah,
just like, well, just kick up on the wall, put your head on the ground and
do
press
it.
back up, right? Just do it, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel that the background in gymnastics ended up helping you, or did it, become something to overcome when you were then coaching gymnastics from a CrossFit in a CrossFit setting?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what it did help me with is knowing what good looks like. So I know what the end goal is supposed to look like. I think what was a little bit more challenging and where maybe my gymnastics background didn't necessarily help me, but other experiences like coaching young girls in volleyball helped me was figuring out how to break those movements down and simplify them a little bit more. Because that's not something, to your
Yeah.
point, that you really learn when you're young, and especially when you're 7 or 8. Like, I hardly remember what I did last week half the time. So to think back to all the cues and the progressions that we followed as kids, it's totally different teaching adults. So I think it did help me in the aspect of knowing where I wanted my athletes to get to and what those shapes and positions are supposed to look like. But sometimes the journey to get them there, like I had to learn some of that kind of as I went along, for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and that is a really good point of like knowing what that end state, what you want it to look like or should look like. It's like, okay, cool. I know where somebody needs to end up. So I know if they get there, I know what to do. Now it's like, okay, how do we build almost the path to
Yeah,
get there to help someone get
exactly.
to that point, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's a really cool perspective. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's come back around to yours. Okay. So that was your first CrossFit experience. You escaped Murph narrowly by one day.
Yes, by
Again,
one whole day.
still chills. Yeah. Goodness gracious. Who knows how different this whole, that whole story, that's the whole butterfly effect thing, right? It's like how
I
different your
know.
story goes if you had shown up on Monday instead of Tuesday.
I know.
Um,
It's crazy.
so you had that experience, you go back to college, right? It's helping you. And then we kind of talk through that piece of it. Now you decide to get back into CrossFit, right? You're a year-ish removed from coaching volleyball, and you're like, okay, now I gotta kind of get myself, I want to, put some focus back in the fitness side and the health side of my life, right?
Yeah.
What did getting back into CrossFit then look like for you? Was it kind of like riding a bike again, like some of the things you mentioned before, or do you feel like it was tougher to get back into that second time around?
Yeah, I think skills wise, that part was kind of like riding a bike, getting back into it. It was more the discipline. I think when you're away from anything for a period of time or you start something new, it takes a long time to create habits. And also breaking habits takes longer. So I think just not having a ton of consistency with being in the gym and trying to break that cycle and getting back into the gym consistently, showing up even when I was sore, and wanting to, go to happy hour instead of going to go work out. That was a little bit of a challenge. But as far as like picking up the skills again, there were a lot of movements that came back a little bit more naturally. Some took a little bit longer to get back. Adjusting to kind of the culture of the gym was different too. I went to a box that was here in Arizona that was pretty spread out, was pretty big. We obviously didn't have a ton of limitations with the elements and seasons. I mean, the heat to an extent. But at the time, I was living in downtown Chicago, and the box that I went to was in the middle of the city. Our class sizes were super, super small because we were in this really tiny space and limited to I think we capped our classes at 10. I kid you not. It was very small. So there were just other things that I had to kind of adjust to with doing CrossFit in a major city and different environments and all that. But, with a few months of time and getting connected and plugged in with the community, it was kind of like how it was before. And just reestablishing those habits took a little bit of time.
In that, now I'm just picturing in that gym in downtown Chicago, is there like long runs programmed in any of those workouts where you're like running through downtown Chicago? That's probably
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Down the street, around the block, through an alley. I mean, we would sometimes have to dodge like the bus that was coming through or like cars that were trying to cut in through the alley to park in their apartments and stuff. It made it pretty fun though, because you at least had some exciting scenery. You had things to look at, whether it was people or cars or stores versus, running out in the West Valley in the back of a Fry's parking lot. Like not really very exciting back there.
Yeah, there might be some exciting things that can. Well, you probably still get more exciting things happening in downtown Chicago than in
Yeah.
the West Valley. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even just from
exactly.
a people watching perspective. Yeah.
Exactly.
What? So, all right, coming back. I'm back. So you mentioned that more of the discipline and rebuilding the habits was the bigger challenge for you when you were kind of getting back into CrossFit that second time around. What were some things that you did, tactically speaking, right, to help rebuild those things, to help kind of stave off the other lifestyle habits that you were trying to break?
Yeah. I think for me, it was one, packing my gym bag every night before I went to work and having it like set by the door. I would take the train at the time. I wasn't driving. I would take the train into our corporate office. And so if I brought my gym bag with me, I better be using it, right? So I made sure that I always brought it with me to work. That way, I was going to the gym after work because I had everything with me. I think keeping a consistent bedtime and not allowing myself to stay up, scrolling social media or binging Netflix too late. So just creating discipline around a couple of those areas and establishing those habits kept me from, going home and relaxing or going out to dinner with friends after work or lingering at work too long. I think also the fact that we had a pretty strict rule around signing into class because of how small we were. If you canceled within a certain time frame, you would be charged. I don't know if they actually ever implemented that, but they scared us enough to know that if we canceled within the hour, we would be charged. And so I signed myself in, and that was my form of accountability because if I was going to get charged for it, like, to me, that was kind of punishment enough that I didn't want to not go. So it created some consistency around that.
Nice. And that's awesome to hear because the things you mentioned, they're not crazy. They're not super complex things that you put in place. It was, I mean, not to devalue it. They were simple things though.
Yeah.
Right. It was more a matter of like, all right, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
If you really want to make this thing, if you want to make this stick, right?
Right. And I wasn't, to your point, I wasn't going to the extent of, dialing in macros to the T or monitoring how much water I drank. I mean, all of those things are great things. And I ended up doing that much later and creating more discipline as I progressed in CrossFit. But I just needed to get back in the gym consistently. I wasn't trying to make drastic change, just kind of incrementally getting myself back into it. So yeah, just small things like making sure I went to bed early, making sure my gym bag was packed the night before and by the front door, and signing in and forcing myself to go, knowing that if I canceled or no showed, there was going to be some punishment involved. And that just kept me consistent with going to the gym.
Yeah, I'm sure that looming punishment probably helped. I've never heard a gym actually like have that, like that they'll actually charge you if you late.
I don't think they ever did. It was just like a scare tactic. But
hey, if it worked, it worked, right?
I didn't question it.
But that's so cool because and I know I've come across some people that'll do this, and I'm sure you have too, that they get started in CrossFit and they get super excited about it. And then it's like, I'm going to do all the things, and I'm going to do, I'm going to come work out every day, and I'm going to do extra programming, and I'm going to get all the new gear, and I'm going to start tracking all my food. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
whoa.
One thing at a time.
It's like, let's slow down.
Yeah, like, Rome wasn't built in a day, people. It's okay. One thing, small change.
Exactly. Yes. One thing, get really, really consistent with it. See if it's actually leading you to the thing that you want, right? So if you do 7 new things at a time, well, guess what? If it works, you don't know which one of those actually worked. And now you're stuck doing those 7 because you don't know, 6 of those may have made no difference. There might have been one thing out of those 7. But if you did all 7 and something worked, you're like, well, crap, now I got to keep doing all of this. And now you're stressed out about your whole routine.
Exactly. It becomes really difficult to sustain that too.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So, and as you were getting back into it, you mentioned you were like, all right, I'm going when I'm sore. Is that when you, or I guess, let me ask this a different way. Were there any movements that you like saw someone do, maybe even back to that first time you experienced CrossFit, movement that you saw someone do that you're like, I want to figure that out. I don't know how they just did what they just did, but I'm going to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I think for me, it was ring muscle ups. And I had minimal exposure to ring muscle ups when I was training here in the Valley. And then when I went back to Chicago, our gym really didn't have a ton of space. I think we had one set of rings and maybe one guy in our entire gym that could do ring muscle ups. And I was like, I want to be able to do those. Even having the gymnastics background, that's not actually a gymnastics skill in the world of gymnastics. So it was still new to me. And I was like, I don't know how that person got up there like that, but I'm going to figure it out one day, eventually. But yeah, I would say that would be the one for me.
How long did it take you to eventually get your first ring muscle up?
Oh gosh. I don't think I got my first ring muscle up till I left Chicago and moved to California. So that would have been in 2017, 2018. So yeah, it took a little while.
And when did you start like that second time getting back into CrossFit, like post volleyball? What year was that?
I think 2016, late 2015, early 2016.
Okay. And then you got that ring muscle up. Sorry, did you say 2017 or 2018?
Like 2018. So yeah, about 2 years, I would say 2.5 years from that point before I got those rings. Yeah.
And that's with, I mean, a decent gymnastics background. Like you said, ring muscle ups is not, not necessarily a skill that you were working on while you were doing gymnastics. But a lot of the other things you were doing had some level of transference. It was more just like learning the technique and the skill component. So, so for those of you that are, 3 months in and haven't figured out your ring muscle up yet, like slow down. It's okay.
Yeah. Don't stress.
Keep working on
it. I laugh.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I laugh when a new athlete comes in and they're like, yeah, I want to learn how to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's kind of an aggressive timeline that you just shared. But I mean, I appreciate the ambition.
It's like, I love that for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what does that conversation look like then when you have someone? I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. What, like, someone comes in, they haven't worked out the majority of their life and they're like, I want to get a bar muscle up or a ring muscle up in 3 months. And you're like, okay, then what is
like this?
What does that conversation look like?
Like this. Well, I have a lot of clients, even today, one-on-one, that come to me and they'll say, hey, my goal is to get X level skill. And I think that conversation really, it starts with earning their trust and kind of explaining the process of how we get to that point. And it's really important that I have an understanding of where you are today. And it's great to know that that's your end goal, but kind of just walking them through high level, everything that it takes to get to that point, and really trying to build trust with them and gain that credibility so that when you tell them, hey, we're not going to work on bar muscle ups today because you don't even have a strict pull up yet. Here's where we need to start. You're met with a little bit less resistance. So I think even sharing some of my own personal stories, it took me, I think I got my bar muscle up before I got double unders by like a significant amount of time. And I avoided that movement for a long time, but I always share that skill to say, hey, I was 3-4 years into CrossFit and I was really struggling with double unders. So just know that there are sometimes going to be those skills that take a little bit longer to get from point A to point B. But as long as we're being consistent with what happens in between and you trust that I have your best interest in mind, I'll help you get to that point. But yeah, you're always going to have those athletes that they say, yeah, that's great, coach. Thank you. I still want to work on, X skill. And you have to kind of navigate those one-offs. But usually that's kind of how those conversations, at least for me, go.
That makes sense. Yeah, the earning trust piece on the front, that's a really good point, right? So that way you can, I don't want to say let someone down softly or let them down easily, but it is a level of, being realistic of like, hey, right. like the example you said, right? Hey, we're not going to work, if you don't have a strict pull-up yet, we're not doing bar muscle up work. Like that's in your best interest, but they've got to believe that, right? That you're actually coming to it from that perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I think letting them know too, our job as coaches is to make sure that we're keeping our athletes safe and that they can do CrossFit today and 5 years from now. And if we just let them skip steps, let them kind of do what they want, we're doing them really a disservice as a coach. So I think kind of coming at it from that angle as well is really helpful. And to your point about like setting realistic expectations, I don't want anyone to be disappointed or hard on themselves and feel like they're failing if they've set unrealistic expectations for themselves. So if we can kind of like shift the perspective, like this is a reasonable goal in this amount of time, that confidence continues to build from there. So rather than saying, okay, we're going to work on your bar muscle up when they're nowhere near it, and I want you to have it in 3 months, they're probably not going to have it in 3 months. And then they're going to quit and they're never going to come back. So we kind of bring those back into what are some like incremental milestones that we can hit, celebrate those wins, and then we build on the momentum from there. And usually that approach works. You always have the one-offs that still want to do what they want to do, those cowboys. But all in all, I think that's kind of the approach I have to take.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Yeah. And one thing in there, how much of that did you have to, think through yourself, whether it was with double unders or ring muscle ups, and keeping that same perspective that you would give an athlete that came to you with an aggressive timeline as a coach, right? But then, essentially swapping positions, and you're the athlete trying to figure those movements out. How did you keep that in mind? So that way, those levels of frustration on a day when double unders just aren't happening, because those days happen all the freaking time. I just had one probably like 6 months ago, and I just threw my rope in the trash can. I was like, I'm done with this. But yeah, so how did you keep that perspective for yourself from the athlete side of things?
I think for me, in the moment, I didn't realize that it was happening, but I had coaches who had invested in me and had earned my trust. I could definitely feel like they were very credible and knowledgeable in what they were saying. They provided their own like personal experiences and said, hey, I struggled with this movement, and I want you to trust that, doing these strict pull-ups with a band, or not with a band, or toenails, whatever that looked like, right? It got me to where I'm at today. And I need you to trust this is the direction I'm giving you because I want you to progress. And I think using my own personal experience and reflecting on when I actually listened to my coach and I followed the steps and I trusted the process, I actually progressed a heck of a lot quicker than when I was doing everything on my own or how I felt like I needed to do it. And so I think sometimes even just sharing your personal experience with an athlete can kind of help gain trust. And so that's what was modeled to me and how I bought into that kind of narrative and approach. And so then I was like, oh, shoot, that actually worked. Great. Now I'm just going to trust the process and trust my coach, and look at that. Now I'm progressing. That's kind of the same tactic and approach I use with the athletes I work with today. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I might have to make a t-shirt that says trust your coach. That I feel
exactly. Just listen to us.
Listen to your coach. Yeah. That's it. Right. With the quotes from you. Piggybacking on that then, because so you mentioned double unders. I know we talked a little bit about ring muscle up. So now I want to, then let's talk through your experience on double unders. Because then I feel like, I feel like, remember when I asked you if there was anything you didn't want to talk about and you said no? No.
Double unders.
I think we found it. So what, because ring muscle ups, I do think a lot of people want to get ring muscle ups, but that is a higher level skill. I think the double under is a high skill movement as well, but it's more accessible. I feel like there are more people that want double unders than want to do ring muscle ups. So I'm curious to hear your path towards figuring out your double unders, because you said that was, kind of a few years worth of practice and work, and I'm sure frustration, if I had to imagine, right?
Yeah. And I definitely apply my journey to how I coach athletes now. So part of my, I guess, problem or challenge was that I avoided practicing them because I wasn't good at them. So I would constantly take the single under option when we would work on the skill in class because I kept whipping myself or missing. I didn't really want to ask questions. I would shy towards the back of the class. I just didn't put in the work to get good at them. And I didn't utilize those opportunities in class to just practice in the workouts. I never took the option of, hey, why don't you do 30 seconds of attempts and move on and see how many you get? And that becomes your new threshold for the class. I was like, no, I'm just going to do single unders. And I repeated that habit for years. And so I would either not show up to class when a double under was programmed in a workout, which is super silly, right? So I totally was cherry picking my workouts around the double unders for years, or I would just always default to what is the easier of the two options. And I think once I moved to Southern California, my roommate, who was also a coach at the gym I was at, first told me I needed to buy a speed rope. So that might have also contributed to some of my issues. Yeah. She's like, we're going to go buy you a speed rope. But then she was incredible at double unders. She's like, you need to sign up for any of our workshops that we have. When this happens in class, kind of like, here's the plan I want you to follow. And it was incredible because within, I don't know, a couple months time, I had double unders, and I spent years avoiding it, just avoiding it altogether or taking the easy route. So yeah, my journey to double unders was pretty extensive, probably unnecessarily, but it was a challenging time for sure.
Throughout that whole time that you were, your words, cherry picking or choosing the easier option, through that time, did you want to have double unders too? And you just like,
so badly.
Okay. Because there are some people that do that and they have zero interest in ever doing double unders, right? So
yeah, I just was like, I hate being bad at this in front of other people. And and I think about it as a coach now, and I kind of reflect on that time where I was so worried about what other people are thinking. Like, oh, this girl sucks at double under. She's terrible. Like, look at her struggling in the corner. Nobody's actually paying attention, and nobody is judging anybody. Everyone's coming in there to do their best and get their workout. And there's really no expectations that are being put on anybody other than the expectations you put on yourself. So I think if I had just realized that nobody was paying attention to me but me, and I stopped worrying about what I looked like being bad or wasn't afraid to ask questions, I probably would have been a lot more successful sooner. So
how relieving was that once you realized that?
Oh my gosh, it was like so liberating. Then I stopped caring what anybody thought. I was like, I'm going to modify wherever I need to in this workout. It's my workout.
Yeah, it's like as my hours, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm like, man, what am I worrying about everybody else for?
Yeah, that's such a cool, because especially, I mean, I feel like CrossFit more than most things, because there are so many different things that you could potentially work on, right? Yeah. And it's like, oh, you figured out double unders, cool. Well, tomorrow we've got squat snatches. Oh, you figured out squat. Well, tomorrow we've got pistols or whatever it is, right? And there's always something new, and like understanding that, like you said, of nobody's outside of the coach, nobody's watching you and judging you.
No.
And if they are, like, that's kind of their problem.
Yeah.
And if it's the majority of people, maybe find a new gym or try a different class.
Exactly. And I can assure you, it's not even your coach, because no coach, at least a good coach, in my experience, is going to be judging you or thinking, oh my gosh, how does this athlete just not have this skill? We are all just happy to see you walk in the door, and we're happy that you chose to be here rather than sitting at home or engaging in other unhealthy habits. So I had like all these preconceived notions in my mind about how other people were judging me, or my coaches were like internally laughing at me. And I'm sitting here now like, no, nobody cares but you.
Yeah. And thank you for putting it that way. Cause your coach is watching you. Your coach is not judging you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm like, I feel like once you said that, I'm like, oh crap, did I say that weird? Did I say it make it sound like your coaches are judging you? Like, no, that's not true. Your coaches are watching you because, well, that's their job and they want you to get better. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, if you interpret that as judging, that's one thing, but it's more to help you improve and make sure you're moving well. But yeah, nobody's judging and like critical and like, in a mean way. It's always from a perspective of like, oh, I think I might see something that might help you actually figure out this move. But to your point, you've got to be open to trying those things and to listening to those things, and also open to like screwing up and kind of screwing up for a little while to see if something might actually work.
Yeah. It's like this idea of failing forward, right? Sometimes we have to fail to actually see progress. Failing doesn't necessarily mean that we're going backwards in anything. We're learning as we go. So I think once you kind of shift that mindset, that's when you really start seeing a lot of gains in the gym, because you're not afraid to fail. Like, that's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of anything other than you're learning, right? So
Yeah, it's like it's a sign of you're trying something new, and maybe it didn't work this time, but that doesn't mean it's not going to work at all, right?
exactly.
Maybe you just need, but it may be there's it's almost like a weird. Or I'm gonna see if I can tie this concept together. It's like a timeline component, right? It's like, oh, I'm worried about just using double unders as an example, right? I'm worried about, being bad at these drills for a couple months, right? So I'm just not going to try them at all. But if you endure that for a couple months, then you potentially unlock the skill of double unders for essentially a lifetime, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, well, is that trade-off worth it to you if you want double unders, right?
Mhm.
Kind of is, but you've got to be willing to go through that suck of those couple months or couple weeks or however long it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Wow. All right, we're going to come back around to your story, because we've talked a lot about your coaching perspective, and I do want to I want to come back to how coaching in CrossFit then came up for you. Was that something
Yeah.
that, because you had the coaching experience from club volleyball
Hmm.
some years before, stepped away from that, got into CrossFit from an athlete perspective, and then at some point coaching in CrossFit becomes an opportunity for you. Was that something that you were interested in? How did that end up coming up for you?
Yeah. So I had been doing CrossFit about 10 years before I started coaching. And I just,
Really? Okay.
I was doing a lot of things while balancing, training at the gym. I was in graduate school, navigating new jobs and trying to get established in my career. I just really didn't have the time or capacity to do it, but I still had a huge passion for helping people. And so I actually, when I moved out to Goodyear area and started going to CrossFit Fury, I had already decided on my own to go get my level 1 certification. I really didn't know what I wanted to do with that necessarily. I didn't know if I wanted to coach at Fury. I didn't know if I wanted to coach group classes. I kind of had this vision of taking some of my gymnastics expertise and having more one-on-one settings with individual athletes and helping them, more like having personal training clients, and doing some of those skill-specific workshops than teaching group classes. But I wasn't close to that idea. But I just really didn't know where I was going to go with that. And so one of the head coaches at the gym had approached me, didn't know that I had already signed up for the L1 that was being hosted at Fury anyway. I was like, hey, I think you'd really make a great coach. Have you ever considered it? And so we kind of initially had that conversation when I got my certification, but I didn't actually step onto the floor until, 3-4 months later, once I kind of got comfortable with the idea of coaching group classes and just kind of seeing where that one-on-one kind of opportunity took it from there, and how it would present itself. But yeah, it was a long time before I even started coaching, which is kind of crazy to think about. But
What prompted you to want to get your level 1?
I think I just felt like I had finally the bandwidth to do it. And there was just something about not having that in my life that I felt like was missing or lacking. Um, in my professional career, a lot of what I do is leadership development. There's a level of like training that comes through that. And I know anytime I get opportunities to facilitate trainings and help leaders be more effective and efficient in their jobs, it's very fulfilling to me. And so I know that I get a ton of energy from that, but I didn't really have a ton of opportunities in that part of my life at that time. And was looking for other avenues to do that. And I knew that coaching had done that for me in the past. And so it kind of was like, okay, maybe this is the space that I do that in now. I don't really have the time to travel and do all the things that go with club volleyball. I've been away from that game for a while, but maybe this is the space I want to play in. And so that's kind of what got me dabbling with the idea of jumping into coaching.
Nice. Okay, and then what was that like when you got your level 1? Because having been doing CrossFit for, you know, almost 10 years, you said, from that very first summer that
Yeah.
you tried it. That's a long time in the game. That's a lot of time seeing the kind of the evolution of the methodology, and I mean just CrossFit as a company itself. But the level 1 can be a pretty kind of transformative, feels like too big of a word, but also I can't think
Yeah.
of another one right now.
Yeah.
Experience in terms of like the understanding of what CrossFit is meant to be or meant to do.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it had that impact on you when you went to do it compared to what you thought about CrossFit before that?
Yeah, I think so. I think really the elements of the L1 where you talk a lot about the intent and the methodology and like where did this come from? Like what were we trying to accomplish through this was really insightful for me because obviously that's going to influence how you approach coaching athletes. And I think having that one-on-one instruction or small group instruction and like this is how you see and correct an athlete, it was actually really encouraging and validating because over the last several years between my time at CrossFit North Scottsdale and my time at CrossFit Kinnick in Southern California specifically, like the coaches that I had really embodied that. And so it was like, okay, I know what good coaching looks like. I mean, I thought this was what good coaching is, but now this is just validation that this is what it's supposed to look like. And you can tell that those individuals approach their coaching coming from a place that was grounded in that methodology. So just finally kind of brought everything full circle to me. And kind of also gave me the confidence to say, like, you can do this, you know what it's supposed to look like. Obviously you're going to make it your own. You're going to fail a little bit along the way, but you know what it's supposed to be and like have confidence in the fact that you know what good looks like and just, carry it forward from there.
Kind of there's a I'm going to try to make this connection. There's a weird connection there between a lot of the stories and your experience that you've shared, even going back to like when we were talking about how your gymnastics background translated into your CrossFit coaching and how you're like, I don't know how to, I haven't quite figured out how to break these components down to get someone to the end state of one of these movements, but I know what the end is supposed to look like. Yeah. And now I can figure out how to get through it from there. And then you tie in the double under story of like, I know what I want to get to, but I'm like, I'm kind of scared of like failing or looking bad or thinking that other people. And then, so breaking that mentality and being like, well, we're going to try some things, right? Yeah. And we're going to see what happens and we're going to learn from it and develop. But also I know what the end state is supposed to look like. So I have an idea of what I'm working towards and how all those things come together then to seeing that, what that end state of coaching could and should look like at the level one. That's like a cool culmination of like all of those experiences over that, over a 10-year stretch, right?
Yeah.
To get to that point too. How,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how you learn the same life lesson over and over again, but in different ways.
It's almost like that. Somebody keeps not like, please learn this lesson because I don't know if I can come up with other ways to show you this, but you need to learn it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, just that validation that it's okay to not have it figured out how to get from point A to point B, but you know what the end goal is. So how we get there is going to look different for everyone. You're going to make mistakes along the way. But yeah, I think that's what that experience at the level one really taught me and opened up my eyes to seeing.
Did you, I love asking people this after they've done their level one. Did you realize how much pain you could get put through with just a PVC pipe?
I was so sore. Like probably the sorest I had been in a long time. You don't realize how hard you're trying to be in the right shapes, to be just low enough, to have that chest tall. Like, holy cow. I have never felt this sore from any CrossFit competition. And I literally just did PVC pipe work yesterday.
I feel like the front squat more than anything. I don't know why, but trying to properly front rack a PVC pipe is like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Yeah, it's ironic, and Mike and I were talking about this. That Adrian Conway was one of the seminar staff members at our level 2.
Yeah,
and if you've ever seen him in person, jacked as Jack gets. Full front rack of a PVC pipe to demo the front squat. And I'm like, oh, I have no excuse from now on. I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure this out because if he can do it, surely I can do it.
I know. You see these people move and you're like, I think I move like that, but actually I really don't move like that because they're tearing me apart right now.
Yeah, I know. Like, how are you doing that so well? I mean, that's unbelievable. And talking the whole time too.
Yeah.
Which is a skill in itself. Yeah.
I know. Completely unfazed, right?
So what was you mentioned that, as you got into coaching, all right, I'm going to make mistakes along the way. I'm going to figure things out. Right. But I understand what the end state is. What were those first couple experiences like stepping on the floor to lead a class after getting your level one? How did those go for you?
Oh my gosh. I was so nervous to like correct people or I questioned if I was seeing what I was actually seeing. And then you kind of start playing in your mind, okay, I'm seeing this issue. How do I tell this person that? I think, I really had to lean heavily on relationship building from the start because you're so scared to offend or to maybe misdirect somebody, and then you sever that relationship with them and they never listen to you again, or they tell you to you can get out of the way. And so I had a lot of fear around that. I think that getting over that hurdle took a little bit of time, and just I had to really lean into kind of what I do outside of here and just getting to know people as people and asking them what they do and realizing how much that work actually helps on, the technical correction side of things, because people know that you're coming from a good place. They know that you have good intentions, and, you're going to make mistakes. I think the other part for me too was just class management, like planning my class and figuring out, okay, here's the workout. We didn't necessarily have prescribed warm-ups at that point. So really, I'd never built a warm-up plan before. And so thinking about, okay, what do I need and why would I do those movements? And I'm really grateful for the people that I have in my circle that were super helpful with that. I mean, having kind of peer mentor coaches at CFNS or having close friends that coached at Kinnick for years, send me their notes on progressions that helped them with the barbell when they were learning. And I'm like, oh yeah, we did this every day and it's with second nature. And now I understand why we do it. And so I think also not being afraid to tap into resources helped overcome some of those things as well. But yeah, managing the class and being afraid to correct someone and it not go over well were kind of the two biggest fears that I had to really overcome in those first few months.
Same. I think the not knowing if I was like super sure about what I was seeing was like a big one. And I mean, I don't know, you tell me if the same thing happened to you, but it happened to me a number of times and probably still does on occasion, where I'm watching somebody move and they're doing like a set of 5 on something or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I see the first rep and I'm like, I think I saw that, but wait, did I really see that? But if I did see that, was that really the cause of, and then next thing you know, a whole set of 5's gone on and you've been thinking about what one person on one rep was doing. And you're like, I also haven't said anything. So I'm just sitting here watching this person. And I'm like, what are they thinking right now? Like I remember the general manager, the coach or at the gym where I was first coaching was like, you need to just, if you're watching somebody, say something before you walk away. Anything. Right. Like say something. Don't just watch them and then walk away and not say anything, because then they're just going to be like, well, was that good? Was that not good? I don't know.
Yes. That's the worst part. I've had that happen to me before too, where I'm sitting there and I'm analyzing what 1 or 2 things do I want to correct? Is this where I should spend my time? Should I start somewhere else? And then they turn and look at you and ask you like, so what's the feedback, or was it good? Like you have all these thoughts going through your brain and you're just standing there silent. It's kind of an awkward thing. I'm thankful for all the athletes that are still working out today that lived through my like onboarding and transition into coaching life, because it didn't quit, because I'm sure there were a lot of awkward stares and silence when I first started.
Yes. Shout out to the people that have been there since day one and seen the evolution. Right.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. What do you think for you is the most rewarding piece of coaching? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit as you were talking about the things that fulfill you from like a career perspective. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if it's a similar thought process from a coaching perspective.
Oh, for sure. It is. I think for me, what I've come to realize is seeing people either achieve a goal that they set for themselves for the first time, and like the joy that comes from that is extremely fulfilling, or kind of related, but also a little bit different. When someone surprises themselves, they achieve something for the first time that they never thought that they could, whether that's a strict pull-up or they PR their snatch. I think I'm in a unique position, and Mike may have talked about this a little bit on his podcast too, but coaching our foundations or basics kind of entry level athletes, as challenging as that can be for a coach, because there's so much that goes into coaching someone that's never done CrossFit before coming in off the street. You get to experience a lot of the like newbie gains that happen. And just experiencing a lot of those firsts, those surprises, those wins is super, super fulfilling because you know that you played a part of that, whether it was guiding them to that end goal or just encouraging them along the way and believing in them and then building the confidence themselves and putting in the work. I think for me, that's been by far the most fulfilling part of coaching.
And how much of that too is you see the immediate win right in front of you? Let's just take even an air squat, right? Something as basic and as an air squat. You see someone and they finally are able to, fully air squat to depth for the first time, right?
Yeah.
That's like, and they come out of the bottom, they're like, holy crap, I just did that. And you're like, holy crap, you just did that, right?
Yeah.
How much of that is, are you consciously thinking about that person is now going to be in this for a long time?
Oh yeah.
Because they got this small win today, but it just unlocked who knows how much more time of fitness for that person.
Oh yeah, so much of it. And it's just this snowball effect, and it's like a positive snowball that builds. It's, oh my gosh, I got my first strict pull-up today. Well, I can achieve that goal. So now my motivation becomes, can I do this kipping? Well, now I want to tuck my chest on the bar. Well, now I want to get on top of the bar and do a bar muscle up. So it's like, you already know just by unlocking some of those basic skills and accomplishing some of those like very fundamental goals that's just the start of more goals that they're going to set for themselves and more goals that they're going to achieve with time. And so that's the exciting part too. You realize that you're like unlocking this whole, new chapter in their life. And there's just so much more ahead.
And that just translates to outside the gym so much too, right?
Yeah.
Like if you never thought you could do a strict pull-up, now all of a sudden you do it and you're like, oh, good. Then you think back and like, I didn't think I would ever get my chin over the bar without support, right? Like, and it's like, well, crap, what else am I capable of accomplishing that I thought I wasn't capable of before, right?
Yeah. It's incredible the confidence that people gain in the gym, how much that translates over into other areas of their life. And I think sometimes we really underestimate the impact that we can have on coaches, or have as coaches, on our athletes, because it's about establishing healthy habits, and it's about, physical fitness and wellness and all those things that we're promoting within the gym. But the like mental health aspect and the way that just like transfer so much confidence from the gym to outside in their personal lives. Now they're going after goals in their, career that maybe they weren't before, or, they're, I don't know, exploring some new area of their life, or taking a leap of faith and, trying something new for the first time, getting a new job, or, whatever that is, like name said thing, but the confidence that they achieve from, just being able to accomplish a goal in the gym setting, like that can carry over into so many other areas. So it's cool to see people grow beyond just athletes, but as people as a whole, and knowing like, hey, I had a really small part in that, but it was really cool to be a part of it.
And like you said, as coaches too, right? Our job is not to build better people. Our job is to help you from a fitness perspective.
Yeah.
But we are so passionate about it because we know that it has the opportunity and a high likelihood, if you stick with it, to help a lot of aspects of your life too.
Oh yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
I get so fired up about it. That's what makes the waking up at 4 a.m. to go open the gym and turn the lights on worth it every single time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why it's a hill that I will die on or whatever, right? If not to be too dramatic, but it's like the world would be better if more people did CrossFit. I mean, think about like however many people in the world are doing CrossFit right now. If you just doubled that and double the amount of people in the world get that benefit that you were just talking about.
Yeah, we'd have a lot happier people, probably a little bit more ambitious people.
Yeah, which is a good thing all around, I think.
Yeah,
right. At least
absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably all be a little bit like we'd be mentally tougher, but also a little bit more like deranged, perhaps.
Probably, but I think
we're
in
all
a good way,
crazy
right?
for doing it, right? Exactly. It's a good type of crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wish I remember who said this. It's a quote that I love. It was like a whole bunch of things of like, these are things that are normal in society today. It was like, being like financially being in debt and being like emotionally unstable and all these things. It's like normal sucks. Being normal sucks.
Yeah.
Like be abnormal, be weird. And guess what? If you've been going to a CrossFit gym for a while,
you're weird.
I'm sorry to tell you, you're weird. We're all
welcome. Welcome to all the weirdo club.
Welcome to the weirdness, and we're happy to have you. Right?
Exactly.
in the nicest way possible. Maybe that's another t-shirt. It's just you're weird.
Yeah, you're
So
weird. Welcome.
there we go. Okay, so I mentioned this question before, but we'll come back around to. I'm curious your coaching experience, coaching at the club volleyball level, and working with younger athletes, because you said they were what, like 13, 14 years old ish, right?
Yeah.
How did that experience then help you when you started coaching CrossFit? Because then you're coaching a different age demographic, obviously also a different activity, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of skill set from a coaching perspective, how did that previous experience help you out when you got to coaching CrossFit classes?
Yeah. Coaching teenage girls requires a lot of patience, a lot of patience. So I think that patience has translated over. I think irrespective of what age group or demographic of people you coach, you learn very quickly that you have to adjust and adapt your coaching style to meet the individual needs of each athlete. So how I explain how to serve a volleyball overhand to one young girl might look entirely different to somebody else, just because it's how they learn or that's how they process. And that requires also a level of patience, but you have to be able to kind of adjust on the fly and flex your style and think through how many different ways can I explain the same skill. And okay, if I try this and it doesn't work, what's my next move? And then what's my next move from there? And what's my next move from there? And it's a ton of problem solving. And I think with coaching adults, it's really the same thing. You're going to follow kind of your general cues and guidance that you would give anyone. And how do you explain how to do a snatch, right? A movement as complex as a snatch, this could go 1,000 different directions. You're going to start at the baseline, and then you're going to start making individual assessments. And how you get someone from point A to point B in the snatch for athlete A could look entirely different for athlete B and C and D. And so I think just having that experience with young girls, and having to develop that patience, not just with them, but with myself as a coach, really helped me going into being an adult and coaching adults. I think sometimes, I know when I first started, I had to remind myself continuously that not only did I need to be patient with the athlete, but I needed to be patient with myself, because if I express the frustration I'm feeling with my inability to get them from point A to point B, that athlete might feel that I'm frustrated with them, or I'm becoming impatient with them and their inability to get from point A to point B, when really my frustration lies in like, oh, what am I doing wrong? What's not being clear in what I'm saying? How can I rephrase this? So I just think kind of going through some of those ups and downs and growing pains with teenage girls really helped me as I started coaching adults.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can only imagine. Yeah. But the way you put that, like the piece you said in there about learning to be patient with yourself. So that way somebody, if they sense frustration, or trying to help make sure that somebody doesn't sense frustration from you, because you don't want them to feel like you're frustrated with them, that
Correct.
Really you're frustrated with yourself. That's so real. That's very real, because you probably try any number of different cues, regardless of whatever movement it is, to help someone get something, and it's not working. And it's like, it's very easy to get frustrated. And probably for most coaches, it's that same feeling of like, what do I need to tell this person to help them move, to help them do what I'm wanting them to do? But like you said, the frustration is with yourself, of not being able to communicate it, and not with the athlete who's hopefully trying their best.
Yeah. And I think too, you have to also put yourself, reflect back on your journey. And like, okay, the first time that a coach told you to do X, did you get it? No. I can think of a number of times where one coach told me the same cue about something for months, and then somebody came out from outer space and told me something slightly different, and then all of a sudden I get it. I'm sure that the first coach was a little frustrated that, someone came in off the street and told you the exact same thing that they've been telling you, and now the light bulb finally clicks. It's not because you weren't trying, it's just sometimes how that goes. So I think also just being present in the moment and saying, what do I want this person to try to accomplish today, instead of trying to fix it all, especially with a new athlete. is how you also could just kind of like keep a level head as a coach. You know, did I get them a little bit lower to a squat to parallel today than they were yesterday? Yes. Okay. It's a win. We're moving on. This is a long journey. We're not going to solve for everything in this 1 hour class. But I definitely failed several times with 13 and 14-year-old girls. So those girls are grown now. So if they're, you know, randomly watching this podcast, thank you for being patient with me when I was a 20-year-old coach, and sorry for the times I lost my cool or didn't quite stay as patient as I am today.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't make them do too many burpees to go all the way back to this.
No.
As a punishment. You know, like, you know what? Just go do 20 burpees, all of you right now.
Yeah. No, thankfully didn't do that.
Thankfully. Okay. So I have another question for you from an athlete perspective.
Okay.
So I know you've also had a couple kind of, I guess, serious injuries along the way. Yeah. And this is, you know, coming out of left field a little bit, but it's because I know it's happened. So, I mean, if you're comfortable sharing those couple recent ones, I'm curious, one, the experience around that, around when those happened, how that went, how that was for you. And also two, how your perspective on CrossFit itself, you know, did it change at all? Are you still as passionate about it no matter either way, right? Like how did the experience of the injuries that you've had shape your approach to your own personal fitness too?
Yeah, they definitely have shaped where I'm at with CrossFit as far as where it sits like in a priority standpoint. But I'll kind of backtrack and set the stage. So last July, I had surgery on my Achilles. I had experienced pain in the bottom of my foot for about 6 months, not really knowing what it was. Decided to get some imaging, and there was a bone spur that was found on my heel. Not something necessarily related to CrossFit or anything that I could have prevented. It wasn't anything caused from an accident, just sometimes it's an unfortunate genetic circumstance. And that was causing a partial tear of my Achilles. So that bone spur was rubbing against the tendon and causing it to fray. And so without surgery, it eventually would rupture. So surgeon went in, we went a pretty conservative route, not as invasive as a full Achilles rupture repair. But that timeline for recovery was about 6 months before I would be kind of back to normal, even though I never really achieved fully back to normal. You know, with it being my right foot first time around, it was challenging. I mean, you talk about not just impacting your ability to work out, but your own independence. I couldn't drive because it's my right foot and I was in a walking boot, and I live by myself. So to have to ask for help to do just basic life things is something that personally is a challenge for me and makes me very uncomfortable. And so that tested me in that way, as well as like really testing my fitness. But with that particular surgery, I was out of the boot, a little bit more mobile, pretty quickly on. And I kind of just through trial and error figured out how to do normal life things, and then figured out what I could and couldn't do in the gym. Coming back from that injury, I definitely was very cautious and conservative in my return to full athletic approach. I gave myself a lot of time to recover and heal. It never really felt totally normal, but good enough to do the things that I needed to do. And, you know, based on the PT that I had done and the advice from my surgeon, I was cleared to really do whatever I felt comfortable doing. So kind of everything's going well. It's finally getting my strength back, starting to get my coordination back. Flash forward to June of this year, and in the middle of qualifiers for DC during the shuttle run workout, I ruptured the same Achilles. And this time where I tore it was where the tendon attaches at the calf versus down at the heel, which is where I had surgery the last time. And it was like shocking and also extremely devastating at the same time. I think, you know, in the moment I knew what happened. It was one of those where as soon as I felt it and I heard it, I knew that it was a really serious injury. And, you know, the first time when I had the news that I was going to need surgery the previous year, I was pretty devastated. You know, I was constantly thinking about how it would impact my life within the CrossFit space, especially because I was competing a lot more at that point. My perspective shifted a lot the second time around, and it was far less about like, what does this mean for me at the gym? And it was more like, okay, what does this mean for me long term in my life and how I approach working out moving forward, and what impact is this going to have on me personally now? How does this affect how I do work, and can I drive anywhere? And like, that's really where my mind went. It was less about, okay, how long am I going to be out of the gym? It was like, what is this gonna do for me personally outside of the gym? Thankfully, didn't have to have surgery, but because this was now my second time tearing the Achilles, and an Achilles rupture, like a full Achilles rupture, is a very lengthy and grueling recovery process. My surgeon had advised me to take a very conservative approach to rehab. So I have proceeded with caution, really followed that protocol. I spent 8 weeks in a boot, which meant 8 weeks I could not drive. That was pretty tough to navigate, just getting out of the house and doing everyday things and feeling like just a normal human. But kind of jumping forward to what that's meant for CrossFit for me, it's funny because I'll have people ask me if when I come back in my training for some sort of competition, and I look at them like, you have completely missed the plot here. Like, when you have 2 Achilles tears in a year's time, the last thing you're thinking about is stepping on the competition floor. It's like, what am I training for? I'm training for life. And when you have your personal life impacted significantly by an injury, you have to like really take that step back and ask yourself, why am I doing CrossFit? Is it to go to the CrossFit Games? No, that was never really the goal for me. Was it to be this top competitor? No, that actually wasn't even like the goal for me. I've been doing it because I love it. And so I'm now at a point where I have to prioritize my long-term health over like short-term wins and achievements on the competition floor. So not to say that I'll never do a competition ever again in my life, but right now that is not at all on my radar or the priority. It's just staying healthy and finding fulfillment in other ways. If that's pouring all my knowledge into athletes and coaching, then great. That's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. If it's, spending more time with family or spending more time outside the gym and growing, personally and developing there, then great. All of those things are great. CrossFit can still have a role in my life, but it doesn't need to like define who I am or be the center of what I do. And yeah, I think serious injuries shift perspective a lot when it comes to that.
Yeah, 100%. Serious injuries, there's any number of things that can fall in the category of like you want to call it a life event, right? Mm-hmm. Serious injury, you have a kid, like a whole host of different things that can happen that can have that impact and have that perspective shift for you. And to hear for you, it sounds like there was never really a doubt or a thought, and you can correct me if I'm assuming something here, yeah, that there was never a doubt that CrossFit was going to continue to be a part of your life.
Yeah.
It was more a matter of how and what things need to change to make sure that I'm putting the priorities in the proper order.
Exactly. Yeah. CrossFit might just look differently for me now. Like maybe there's movements I just don't do anymore. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with saying, once upon a time I was able to do this. I'm not going to do that anymore because, I don't want to spend another 8 weeks in a boot and not be able to drive. Right. Yeah. It never was a question of, do I need to walk away from this? It's just, what is CrossFit going to serve in my life? Is the intent and purpose to be a method for competing? No, it's going to be general health and wellness, community, all of those types of things. So
that's so well put, right? It's like it'll mold with you, and it's still going to be like, from a fitness perspective, probably the best thing you could choose to do.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
If it's something you enjoy. right? And it's just going to move along with you as seasons of life come along, right? So no, that's so well put, so cool to hear. How's the recovery going now? I mean, you said you didn't have to have surgery the second time around, right? So
Yeah.
now are you technically cleared to do things?
No.
No.
Yeah, so we're starting to load the tendon a little bit more, so getting some of those squatting movements back, but jumping, running, the explosive stuff, still really taking a conservative approach there. And
Gotcha.
I'm not rushing to get back to anything. I mean, if I don't have to do burpees for another month, I'm not mad, if I'm being honest. Just kidding. Kind of.
You're like sort of kidding, but also
Sort
not
of
really
kind of
kidding.
kidding.
Like it's kind of fine.
Yeah, it gives me an excuse not to run. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just being really patient with it. So happy with the movements that I've been able to add back in, with my ability to just even drive to the gym and participate in some capacity in class. I'll take anything over nothing. But yeah, we still probably have another 4 to 6 weeks, and then we're just kind of taking it day by day at this point.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that, that even goes back to what we were talking about with like just reevaluating, being realistic about timelines of like what
Absolutely.
you're working towards. Right. It's
Yep.
like, would you rush things faster? You could, but what's it worth?
No, not
Why?
worth it. Yeah.
Not
What's
worth it.
3 weeks to, potentially be out another year? That's so silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I got one more question for you then.
Okay.
So I want to wave a magic wand. I'm going to put you in a time machine, and I'm going to give you a couple different options here of like previous
Okay.
versions of yourself that you can talk to and give advice to your younger self, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to give you two options. One is the younger Courtney that's in between leaving or being done coaching club volleyball and before starting CrossFit again, right?
Okay.
So kind of that year and a half-ish time frame where like, health and fitness was, less of a priority, lifestyle changes, things like that. We didn't necessarily go into details about what that looked like, but again,
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily relevant here, but more think of like you in that space. The other option I'll give you is the version of you that was maybe a day or two after that second Achilles rupture, right? So you're
Okay.
just going through the qualifier, right? You had that happening. I can't even begin to imagine what that emotion was, right?
Yeah.
One of those two, your choice on which one the question makes more sense to do. They come to you and say like, all right, if it's that younger version after being done coaching club is like, I need to get, like whatever I'm doing now is not working and I need to get back into something. I need to make this, kind of reestablish this as a priority in my life. I've heard of this thing called CrossFit. It looks kind of funky. It looks kind of weird. My mom told me about it. She saw it on ESPN. I don't know what's, I don't know. They look like they're doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Like
Yeah.
what should I do? Right? What should I do? Do you think I should try it? And now, you with the years of experience that you've had in the gym as an athlete and as a coach, right? What would you tell that younger version of yourself?
Yeah. I would say just walk in the door, give it a try. I think one of the things that I doubted about myself is the ability to learn new things. We sometimes, I think, get so comfortable in what we've already accomplished or what we know how to do. And as we get older, at least for me, I get a little bit less excited about trying new things, knowing that I might not be that great at them at the start. And so I would tell that person, just walk in the door and give it a try. The worst thing that's going to happen is that maybe it's not a fit and we can go try something else. But you will surprise yourself at how quickly you're going to adjust, you're going to grow, you're going to learn something from this, and you're going to build community and relationships along the way. I think I underestimated the community and relationships part of it. And although I also needed structure and routine, I also needed relationships outside of the work environment because that was my only outlet for community at that time. And it really wasn't until I started getting back in the gym that I started feeling just a lot more connected, a lot more fulfilled. Yeah, I would just encourage that person to walk in the door and give it a try.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Courtney, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your journey. Again, congrats on a national championship. I know I'm still just like tying back to
Years
that, right?
ago.
Oh my goodness. 10 years ago, an hour ago in terms of conversation, but still impressive nonetheless. No, but seriously, thank you for sharing your story and for, dropping some knowledge on us in terms of the things you've learned.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Marco.
You got
Have a good rest of your Friday.
You too. See you, everybody.
All right.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with a friend. To get notified of future episodes, please follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you can continue to hear these stories. For more behind-the-scenes content of everyday CrossFitters, follow on YouTube and Instagram at Silverback Media. Until next time, this has been the Silverback Media Podcast.